That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I'm your host, Sid Part 2, and I'm always going to be messing with this iPad at the beginning of episodes because I can't think of a better way to do this. In any case, hope everyone is doing well. I've only got, looks like I got 2 people here ready to watch the stream, which is cool. We're not going to really do too much waiting on anybody since people do watch this after the fact. For those of you watching after the fact that don't know, there are timestamps down in the description to each book that I'm talking about. So let's discuss what we're talking about. First thing we're going to be discussing is Predator Hunters, number 3. Then we'll be talking about DC Comics Bombshells, number 30, which still isn't quite over. And then Bane Conquest, number 3, followed by Batman, number 26. So it's a pretty light week on new issues, but we've got a trade to talk about this week. For Black Panther. This is the first volume of Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther, and it is called Who is the Black Panther? I got Dr. Holocron here. Hi, Dr. Holocron. And I've got Steve here. And Steve's offered to join me for Batman War of the Jokes and Riddles, which is going to be like the last thing I talk about, Steve. So I hope you don't mind sitting around and waiting for that to happen. But in the meantime, I'll send you that link so you are able to join whenever you are ready, good sir. Because that'll be fun. It'll be nice to have Steve here to talk issue by issue about Tom King's Batman. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it and start talking about Predator Hunters, number 3. This had a very interesting development in it, and as always, I'm really excited, really enjoying this book. It's just a neat inversion of the Predator mythos. So the standard story with the Predator is within a Yautja comes from space when it's hot and hunts humans and, strings them up, makes trophies. Strings them up, makes trophies, and, leaves when he's bored. That's the standard Predator story. In this issue, we get a lot of background about the location that our team is going to and what's exactly going on with it. So we get background based on the history of the location and how it came to be what it is. And so this guy talks about how his great-grandfather bought 2 islands, about 150 years ago, and, established essentially a colony on one and a hunting reserve on the other. He imported animals from all over the world to put on this separate island, hoping that they would take off and thrive and he could turn it into his own private hunting reserve. It didn't really work. A couple of invasive species like a boar and some snakes managed to take hold there, but nothing big like you put tigers there, and they've never heard of one since. And so after they get this information, after they eat well, they go, the team goes and starts to, invade the island. They go and they start to invade the island and seek out and hunt the predator when they're attacked by a tiger, which shouldn't be there, but it's there. The thing is, it doesn't attack them, it's just running away. Members of the team start to drop as the predator ambushes them and then takes off back into the woods. And They, track it down, trying to hunt it. And they actually manage to successfully kill the predator. Really, really easily this early on. Then they start to wonder why it didn't have stealth technology, why it didn't seem to have any technology. And they find a guy that the predator was keeping captive. And he tells him, no, there are 4, not just 1. And that's the plot of the issue. So somehow or other, the guy that bought the island managed to secure at least 1 predator on it. No, I guess at the very minimum 2, if not all 4. They have no technology. They have no way off the island. They are not the super advanced alien hunters that we're used to. These are 4 predators, now 3, with limited technology and resources, stuck on this island that was designed to be a guy's private hunting reserve. That's fascinating, because this is literally what predators do to humans. That's what the whole movie Predators is about, right? Is just, okay, they take humans and put them on their own private hunting reserve. And it's a planet that the humans have no hope of getting off of. This is a guy in the 18th century discovering the Yautja and doing that to them. I find that just really interesting. Everything about the turns that this story takes, I am just absolutely fascinated by, moment to moment. There's nothing like super deep here. We're not really commenting on the depths of man's soul or anything. This is just a really solid, entertaining story, you know? This just working for me on a basic level of, that's cool. I enjoy this. This is a neat thing. And so yeah, I'm digging it for that reason. Let's talk about the art a bit, because I was a little down on some of the art initially, because I just thought the Predator looked a little what's the word? A little too gruff in some of his imagery. But, you know, knowing the context now that it's like a predator without any real technology, that's kind of fascinating. And it's working for me. So, yeah. I'm digging the hell out of this, guys. So yeah, Predator Hunters, go get this. 2 more issues left. It's a 5-part series, and every issue I just get more and more interested. It's solid, y'all. Oh shit! All right, let's go ahead and move on to DC Comics Bombshells number 30. I don't want this book to end. So this is mainly the Bombshells in Stalingrad preparing for what they think is an oncoming blizzard. But it ends up being an invasion by Killer Frost and her minions of the Reich. And that's really cool. So you get like half the issue. Anyone else get annoyed with the Snickers ad this week? I was like really into an issue, and then I turned the page and it's a Snickers comic ad. I'm like, oh god. Anyway, so we get like half the issue of just everybody hanging out, and we've now got a Superman in this universe, and so far he has said like literally nothing. He hasn't talked. He's just been kind of cool looking. Like we open the issue with a circus performance between Power Girl and Superman. And that's neat. I mean, I'm enjoying the hell out of that, don't get me wrong. And it's like set to the backdrop of Kara dealing with what it's like in Leningrad, Stalingrad, whatever. And I don't know, I'm just kind of enjoying the antics of Superman and Power Girl doing circus performance. That's fun. Yeah, they're just like hanging out, and that's neat to see. I love this moment where two little boys go up to Superman and ask him if he can pick them an apple from a tree. And then there's a Snickers ad, but like he goes, okay, yeah, and he just like total Superman move, just grabs the tree branch and bends it down. And then Poison Ivy comes up to him and is like, and he looks, he's accidentally bending the entire tree. And so he goes, oops, and let's go. And then the tree springs back the other way. Oh, I don't know. That was a cute, fun moment. And like you need stuff like that when you start to introduce what happens at the end of this. So, yeah, Killer Frost with the Nazis and the mythical forces of the lands the Nazis have conquered begin an invasion of Leningrad. In the meantime, on the other side of the lines, Zatanna and Constantine show up, and they're looking for Raven, but they run into the back half of Killer Frost's army. Gritty Child. Superman looks like a stereotypical circus strongman with that outfit and the mustache. I guess that's the point. That is entirely the point. That's what he was designed to look like, is a throwback to the circus strongman he was introduced to, or introduced to look like. So anyway, you got the Zatanna and Constantine show up, and so they're kind of fighting from the other side of the battle lines. And Killer Frost is just, you know, intimidating as hell. Constantine turns into a winged jackalope vampire. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. That's just, has Constantine ever done anything that cool in the comics outside of this? Zatanna's fighting the mythical forces of these conquered lands. Someone help me out. I'm not sure who this character is. Abigail Holland, Kholland. Does anyone know who that's supposed to be? She's got kind of like Cruella de Vil hair. Mythical powers, Russian in this. I doubt that's true if she's an already existing DC character. Maybe I'm just missing something. There are a lot of characters that just right over my head. So she informs Zatanna that the mythical forces at work in Russia are mounting their own resistance. Red Leader's asking me how the name is spelled. It's Kholland. Abigail Holland. Abigel. Anyway, so like she talks about how the mythical forces of Russia are amassing to form their own mythical resistance, and that's how we're bringing Swamp Thing back. Is he is a mythical force based in Russia. He's a forest spirit, and I'm so cool with that. That is a great way to put Swamp Thing in this. So you're getting kind of like a Justice League Dark right now. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So she's with Swamp Thing, so it's Swamp Thing's wife. Neat. That's clever. And then you have the build-up for a villain they've been setting up for a couple issues now, which is Feora, who's wormed her way inside the Soviet military command and was responsible for what happened to Supergirl's parents and to Supergirl once her powers were discovered. And she is the mastermind or mistress mind behind all the evil that Hugo Strange has been plotting against the Supergirl. And that's just cool. I'm excited to see this all come to a head, and I'm really excited to see where the next book will pick up, because I don't imagine they'd want to come on, focus. Thank you. I don't imagine they'd want to start a new book this deep into the story. So we'll see what happens. But as always, it's just solid storytelling, even when it's not like this isn't an issue that is hugely emotionally impactful or says much that I think is like super deep. It has its moments, but there's nothing like overly profound here. It's just interesting. Like, Kara shows Power Girl and Superman the kryptonite dagger Lex Luthor gave her before handing her over to Doctor Strange. And Power Girl says, why didn't you use it to strike? Why didn't you try to use this on me, Kara? At any time you could have opened this box. If it weakened us both, prepared for it while I... And Kara just says, the way to free you wasn't through brute force, Power Girl. We just needed to understand each other. We needed to be kind to each other. That was sweet. That was a good message. Swamp Thing versus Groot. Who wins? I'm going to go with Swamp Thing easily, since he can manipulate plants. So I think that's a pretty easy... I thought it was Professor Strange, or do they call him Doctor in this? It's Dr. Hugo Strange in this. Yeah, it says Doctor Strange right there. I don't know. There's a lot of... Even when this book isn't like super profound or anything, it's still pretty just naturally good. It's just entertaining or neat or fun to read. It's got some innovative ideas and knows what it's doing with its premise, which is always good. Zatanna riding a broomstick's kind of cool. Throwing pomegranate grenades on the broomstick. Art's pretty good and pretty imaginative for how to capture all these creatures. Just all these mythical beasts are being shown just kind of in the background or whatever. And it's like, not super unique takes, but solid takes. I like Killer Frost's earrings. Just little ice cubes. That's neat. Trying to think if there's much else to say. Getting some more romantic subtext between Lois Lane and Raven now. And I'm more okay with that than I am with Lois Lane and Supergirl. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. More okay with this, though. I don't know if Lois needs to be with anyone if you're not going to stick her with Superman. But as is, I would take Lois Lane and Raven over to Lois Lane and Supergirl. If we're going to judge Margaret Bennett's ships. Where was Harley's joke? Because this actually kind of made me laugh. Gotta find it. Okay. So Harley Quinn gets to break the fourth wall in this, and we all know it's so funny when Harley Quinn does that, but this one actually got me. So he says to the butler, "What do you call it when Batman skips church?" Christian Bale. And then this one only works if you understand a little bit about French. Only one egg apiece, because in France, one ouf is un ouf. Okay. I don't have too much to say this week. Just kind of an okay issue. Nothing super great. Nothing really much to say about it. I'm still sad this particular iteration of the series is ending, and I really, really hope that the next series sells well too, and that gets to keep going. So I would say when the next series starts up, all of you should go buy it. Probably. There's very little chance it will not be great, and it'd be a good jumping on point. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Bane Conquest number 3. So much of this is just absolutely stuck in the 90s. Like, I used to think that the 90s and all their edgy, gritty gunness was because of, like, mandates from the executives and stuff. And I'm sure that's still very much the case. But apparently, Graham Nolan never got out of the 90s style of drawing comics. And Chuck Dixon never got out of the 90s style of writing comics. Because just everything about this is so utterly 90s. So, Bane and Batman agree to take on this organization. Bane's going to go after this guy calling himself Damocles. Batman's going to go after the man controlling Damocles, who he calls Dionysus due to the myth. Batman confronts him and says that if he wants to get out of here alive, he should let Batman take him to prison because Bane will kill him. Bane finds Damocles, who's trying to act all smug and speak Spanish as he hits Bane. And Bane says, "A lesson in Latin for you, perhaps." And names off the proper names for different parts of your body that are named in Latin as he breaks those parts of the guy's body. That was a pretty cool moment. I liked that. Still think that Bane looks like I really like this panel of Bane, but I still think he looks like a dork with his nose sticking out of his costume like that. It looks so weird. Ugh. Anyway. Batman's about to leave with Dionysus, take him to jail, when Bane shows up and they fight. Dude tries to escape, Bane goes after him. Batman just apparently says, fuck it, and leaves. Like, seriously, Bane brings this guy down who's like, you know, paralyzed, or he's like a cyborg. He's only got like a head, I think, head and maybe shoulders. Brings this guy down in the mountains, and Batman's like right there, and he just like fucks off and leaves. He's like, I guess they're both dead. Bye. It's kind of a dick move, Batman. So Bane takes what's left of this cyborg man and strikes a deal to utilize his criminal empire, because apparently the guy has a criminal empire, and just drags him back to civilization. And meets up with his crew at an airstrip, whatever. And then that's the end of the issue. I don't know what to think of this. Like, it's certainly not awful. It's not even really bad. Akuma Ranger says, seeing this art keeps reminding me of the early Batman TAS character interpretation. Yeah, I mean, it is very, very reminiscent of that because it's drawn by Nolan, who is the original writer. Hey, Steve. 1 second, put on headphones. Whoa. 1 more second. Hey, Steve.
There we go. Sounds better.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I wasn't sure how much of a delay there was between watching the video and you actually speaking, so I thought I hopped on at the end of Bane Conquest.
No, because we're still going through Bane Conquest.
Gotcha.
And so I'm almost done with that because I really don't know how much I have to say. Have you been reading this at all?
I didn't like the first 2 issues. I didn't read the third one.
Yeah, it is really stuck in the 90s, isn't it?
Okay, so it's a weird thing where, like, if this came out in the 90s, it wouldn't be as boring, but it still wouldn't be good either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. It's just like, it's like passable 90s comics, which I guess if you're like a big fan of passable 90s comics, this is your heaven, but for me, I'm just
Dan
like...
Jurgens is writing Superman, so, like, if you want passable 90s comics, go there.
Yeah, I don't know, like passable 90s Batman, I guess. Like, it's just weird. And like, I just look at some of these panels and like, that is the most 90s thing I have seen in 20 years. Like, where was it? It was right at the beginning. I showed it, but just like, we keep showing Bane with these guns just blasting people to death. And I'm like, why would he even use that?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's really bizarre.
There's just stuff like this where, like, it's not awful by any means. It's just like, this is boring. There's still like,
yeah, that was my thing with it. Like, it's just really dull.
Right. The real kicker for me is this is only issue 3 of 12, and I'm like, oh, we're still got like 9 issues to go. Oh.
It does not justify that length. It's done nothing. In the 2 issues I've read, you could have condensed that into the half of 1 issue.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm only reading it because everybody wanted me to, and I'm just like, what? I guess the thing that annoys me is this happened because everyone was in love with I Am Bane, but like, this has either nothing to do with I Am Bane or it completely contradicts I Am Bane.
Well, okay, so when it was announced, I am gone and it was great, and we all thought from the original announcement that it was supposed to be Bane's side of the follow-up to that story. And it's not at
Not in the
all.
slightest. Ugh.
Yeah, like it was supposed to be like, okay, Batman took out Bane. What does Bane do now while the War of Jokes and Riddles is being recited to Catwoman? Apparently, that was scrapped or something. I don't know.
Apparently, time travel back to the 90s and just gush, I guess. Do you know, have Dixon and Nolan done anything since the 90s, like in comics?
Dixon has. Dixon wrote well into the 2000s. I haven't seen Nolan much.
It just, like, it feels like these guys haven't touched a comic book since the 90s to me. Just everything about it feels trapped there. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess as long as some people like it.
Part of the problem is, so there's this thing that people say that bothers me to no end, which is Bane was really cool in Nightfall, and then every time after that, he's a different character and doesn't work. And that's not... I think the issue is Bane has evolved and become a very specific type of character, and Dixon can't handle that.
Ownership of his character kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, like it... Bane got to a place where, like, he is not this weird gun-toting 90s, I don't know, wannabe king? It's really bizarre.
It just doesn't fit with I Am Bane. And, like, you know, if this had come out before I Am Bane, I'd probably have been like, you know, it's a pretty good story for Bane. Like, you know, he's not in a lot of good stuff, but it's whatever for Bane. But now that we just had I Am Bane, which is the best thing since Nightfall with Bane, and I would argue better than Nightfall, I just don't really care.
We were so excited, and then,
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and call that it for I Am Bane and talk about the thing everybody wants to talk about. Batman, The War of Jokes and Riddles. This is War of Jokes and Riddles Part 2, Batman issue number 26.
oh boy, that cover, so good.
So creepy. I love that he's got, like, the piece of the Joker frowning. And again, it kind of works with the whole, like, mentality of the Riddler, where it's a puzzle. Like, you know, obviously the Riddler is not the puzzler, but still.
Yeah.
It feeds into that mentality of a mind game of some sort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the whole notion of trying to piece together who the Joker is at this point.
Yep. And I really like just the level of how you see the battle lines being drawn here. And that's really, really cool. Literally, you see the battle lines being drawn as Riddler carves on his chest, right?
Yep.
I like that the Riddler just says off riddles to no one, but just for himself. I think that's really
like
interesting.
Right? Like, it's bizarre, but it also makes perfect sense to him.
Yep. And it fits the story really well. I'm sorry, what?
Ultimately, he's doing all of this for him anyways. Like, this entire war is him trying to find a way to justify himself in a world with Batman, so of course he's just going to quote riddles to himself.
Yeah. And, you know, it's making the Riddler very dangerous, obviously, which I like.
I want to throw out one criticism, though, because this is early on. I hate the costume they chose to give early years Batman. It's just a generic black Batman costume.
It's got very Dark Knight Returns kind of Batman symbol on it.
Yeah, it's just like it's the most generic Batman costume you could have chosen to give him at this point. Like, they didn't even try to, like, throw a reference or anything out with that. I don't know if maybe they weren't allowed to, but, like, it's a really dull looking costume. Fair
enough, but at least it's, you know, consistent now, and it's not the same costume that he got at the end of Snyder's run.
Yeah, no, it's not. It doesn't have the yellow outline like he'd had in the flashback in I Am Gotham.
So I appreciate it for that.
That's true.
The reason it's not a bold costume from like his past. Like, God, I would have killed for Janin doing the extra long bat ears.
Oh,
I love
yes.
and the fucking shoulder things.
Yes. Oh man, great.
Yeah. I'm getting lost talking about it, but like it is just it's a pretty generic Batman costume. There's nothing wrong with it, I'll say. It's like it's not a bad Batman costume. It's just like, yep, that's a Batman costume.
Well, it's weird because like the Joker in this entire thing so far is just wearing like a very plain black, really morbid. I wish Batman had something more distinctive to go with that. And like even Riddler has a very distinct look in this book.
Yeah, you were cutting in and out a bit there, but I think we got the gist of it. Yeah, I guess I could agree. Maybe he'll change costume at some point during it. Who knows? Okay, so what do you think about what the Joker does versus what Riddler does in reaction to, fighting each other in this issue?
So I thought it was completely apt of Riddler to do what he did because he's anticipating a war. Like the way he's recognized this is he's 10 steps ahead of everyone. He knows what this is. Batman still has absolutely no clue. And so him going to Poison Ivy, his kind of like killing the Doctor and leaving that message that no one else seems to understand because he's so far ahead is very much declaration of war. It's about to go down. I don't think it's a matter of Joker not realizing that, but at the same time he kind of seems like he doesn't want to deal with it in that way. Like, because you have Carmine Falcone's mother, who lives 3 hours away. Joker gives him an hour to kill Riddler, but very clearly, by that timetable, she's already dead. Mm-hmm. So he knows on some level this is probably futile, and it is. But it's exactly what this Joker who can't find the laughter in anything would do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really sadistic, but interesting as hell.
Yeah, and it's like he's not taking this as seriously as Riddler is, and that's kind of interesting. And I think it goes to the idea that he doesn't care as much.
Well, like his heart's not in it, right? Like even if he is taking it seriously, he's only taking it seriously for like these momentary seconds where like maybe he can't.
Mm-hmm. And like I think that juxtaposing these two characters, putting them on opposite sides like this, is a really interesting idea to help build the Riddler's character in a way it wouldn't necessarily be for the Joker's character. The Joker's like an icon of Batman, right? You think, name Batman villains, Joker's on the top of everyone's heads. Riddler is certainly up there in Batman's rogues gallery, but he's never been anywhere near as popular. And I think that I often hear people just compare the Riddler to Joker. We get references like that all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that Joker just sending random thugs after Riddler is kind of telling of that. Where like to Riddler, he's already recruiting big names and he's planning to go after the Joker and all this stuff. Like he is thinking ahead and planning for the war. Joker doesn't think it's going to last. Joker doesn't think that Riddler is on that level. So he's just sending thugs after him to, wipe the problem out of his books. It's not even worth a joke to kill the Riddler. And I think that's very telling because that builds Riddler's character in a way. And so this whole war, I feel, is building Riddler's character in juxtaposition to he's not just the Joker. But I think the Joker wouldn't necessarily get anything out of that if we just played him like the Joker. So adding this whole thing where he can't laugh is a way to give him a character arc through this.
Yeah. And I mean, particularly when King is very actively making Riddler behave in a way that's just so much more associated with the Joker as a person. Where like all of these covers, all of these issues, Riddler's smiling, Riddler kind of like has witty irony in everything that's about to happen, and Joker's got none of that. Like it's in our expectation of who we want Joker to be that Riddler is coming alive, and sort of in the same way Tom King made a case for Bane being kind of the ultimate inversion of Batman, he's making a very similar case for Riddler being on that same track. Where like, what is it about Riddler that in any way and humanity the same way any of his other villains do? Because all of Batman's villains are that dark mirror thing that we always talk about, and Riddler's always kind of had that, but it's always been more implicit than explicitly explored. And Snyder tried really hard in Zero Year. It kind of falls apart, but like it seems like King is getting it right, and he's building it slower and making it work more inherently with what we think we understand about Batman and Joker.
Yeah, and you know, I like the way that that's working. I like the way that fits them. That Joker's not himself right now, which is why he's in this situation. And Riddler is trying to define himself because as of before this whole story started, he was just kind of being kept in the police department as basically a CI. And like he wasn't necessarily taken seriously like the Joker was. So there's like the context of the story itself, but it's bleeding over into the context of how people talk about these characters in the real world.
I know with mutilating himself with that question mark scar, and I think ultimately it's way cooler and more and smarter than it is just plain old edgy, because ultimately this story, like we keep talking about, is defining what Riddler's identity is, and Riddler literally branding himself and burying it open this entire issue is very much that sort of like 10 steps ahead call to what is this story supposed to be about. It's about what the Riddler is trying to do for himself, and people will get that regardless of how subtle or not subtle he has to be. Yeah,
and I like the discussion of the message he leaves for the Joker. Where we just have these, TV reporters sitting there talking about, and like, could it be a code within the message? It's like, I mean, maybe. I love when anchors and reporters speculate about things they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. Like, it's one of my favorite things in real life, and it's even better in fiction because they can be even more ridiculous. So that's just something that I thought was really interesting.
I thought that was really cool, paired on top of the Joker, like, trying to force himself to have his classic grin. Where, like, everyone's kind of expecting things to fall into place, and they're not. And they're not for anyone, whether you're Riddler or other news reporters or Joker. Also, it's really cool that Batman has been in this story almost entirely in the background, and every time he's narrating his own events, it's entirely about the body count and the people that are dying. Where, like, Batman is only the cleanup crew for this whole thing. He's only tangentially important to what Riddler and Joker are trying to do for each other.
Yeah. And then, we just get some really great art that kind of gives you this amazing sense of a literal war going on. Like you're mentioning, Batman's keeping track of the body count. And then we get like this great 2-page spread of Riddler and Ivy walking through this forest of thugs that she is strangling to death, right?
Yep.
And they're just so detached and talking about completely different things, like these high-minded things. And you literally get, and they're like in, all right, so if the forest killing the guys are the battlefield, they're literally in a trench talking general talk.
Yep.
And I really like that image.
And also just the notion of like Batman's entire involvement is with all of these quote unquote casualties and troops on the battlefield. And he has almost no conception of like the higher generalness that is causing this war in the first place.
Yep.
That's a really interesting place to put Batman in.
I like that Oswald Cobblepot's working for the Carmines, or the Falcones, sorry. That's just a small little thing I enjoyed. I always like the idea that Oswald Cobblepot's like the last remnants of the Gotham mob. By the time you get into far Batman, like the mob kind of slowly dies out and Oswald Cobblepot gobbles it up.
I dig that. Yeah, that's a cool way to do it. Also, a very distinctly drawn Carmine Falcone, despite not having the scars on his face or the rose. Like, you know who that is as soon as you see him without any of the visual markers. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's introduced well, and he's got the white suit, so he stands out from his men perfectly.
Yeah.
Looks solid.
It's just, this guy is a fantastic artist.
Yeah, I agree. Then we got to talk about, since we're talking about the art, I adore this.
Oh, yeah.
That is freaking gorgeous.
So good.
Oh.
So good.
Yeah,
It's just a really interesting breakdown of who's on whose team yet again.
So
because we did almost exactly the same thing last issue, but it's expanding now. It was one page, now it's two.
Yeah, and this just feeds in better to Janin's style, because again, I think that last issue, that other page felt like it was meant for Finch. That's just a very Finch thing to do, to split a page like that down the middle. Whereas Janin likes to sprawl stuff out a bit more, I've noticed. And
yeah,
this just
Janin's, as King says, he's a horizontal artist, whereas the way King writes and the way Finch draws, they're more vertical.
So this I like. It feeds into his art style a lot better. I love the question marks. I love the map. Everything about this just really, really works for me. And then we get, again, the other side of it, just like we keep doing. I hope that every issue does a 2-page spread in which Joker and Riddler are mirrored like this, because that was really cool in the first issue. This is the second time we've gotten it. I really hope we keep doing that.
I mean, it's a really cool way to like artistically show this is getting bigger and bigger.
Yep. Man, I really want King to do a treatise on each Batman villain, just like a whole story dedicated to each villain. I would be so okay with this.
I really want to know what his big plan is after War of Jokes and Riddles. Because like this is all a flashback, and then we're going to move forward with the whole Selina and Bruce potentially getting married thing. What's that next big story?
This is like a great time to introduce that, like to break away from the standard continuity and go to like a early days Batman story, because we have that great cliffhanger of Batman proposing to Selina, right? Yeah. And man, that's just like a really solid time to take us somewhere really, really early on in their careers and stuff.
Well, particularly with the way King's described this story as, this is how he sees Batman's greatest failure. And in the issue that he proposed, his entire thing was he's not happy. So before he can achieve the thing that will make him happiest, he has to confess the thing that makes him saddest. That's just, it's beautifully poetic, and I love it.
Yeah, totally. And it makes you keep reading, and it just feels like more of a natural place to put a flashback stuff than Zero Year ever felt to me.
I agree. Also, I love that Batman introduces, by the end of this issue, he started to get nicknames, and the last line of this issue is he's standing in that beautiful full page spread of all the casualties of the war, and the last thing he says is, "I was a superhero."
Yep.
It's so good. And like he's literally just standing there naked in front of all the people he sees he's let down and will not call himself a hero. It's beautiful.
Yep. What do you think, like real briefly, of the way we're shown Joker killing people in this issue. We're like,
I like it. We're like, it's basically off panel the whole time.
mm-hmm.
And like, we're just supposed to infer from like the sound effects and stuff who he's killing, how he's killing, and all that. The fact that he doesn't get any joy out of killing people means that we don't have any reason to see him do it either.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's a really cool way to handle that. We're like, at some point, the whole isn't getting a punchline thing, getting in front of the action doesn't matter anymore, because now you know that there's nothing worth telling from the Joker's perspective about this, so you won't see it.
Yeah, it's just now it's just the business of stuff, which is like something he can't stand. And I like that he is actively trying to do all these things that like the Joker would find funny. Like I like that he pulls out Carmine Falcone's mother's teeth and arranges them in a smile.
Yep.
Like that's a very Joker thing to do. And any other version of the Joker, he'd be cracking up about how clever that is. This one, he's like, this should be funny. It's not.
Or like, at the very least, at this point, Joker survived being shot. He thinks he's gonna go to war. The regular Joker would at least like go meet him and taunt him or something. Mm-hmm. But no, he just sent like an armed goon squad out after him.
Yeah.
He just does not care.
Mm-hmm.
He even wants to do his killing. He literally wants his own executioners to do it off panel at this point.
Yep. Yep. And it's just, I don't know, man, it's really fascinating. Like, I love that Riddler tried to appease Joker with this sense of self-preservation, and that just, like, immediately blew up in his face. But yet the Joker is taking steps, albeit begrudgingly, to survive this conflict.
Yeah.
Which we know ultimately he does, as does Riddler, but it'll still be interesting to see how it goes.
Particularly because it's less about their survival and more about just like they're so bizarrely different.
Mm-hmm.
How they become who we think they are is going to be a really interesting path.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else you wanted to mention about it?
Just that this is really, really good, and I can't wait for the next 2 weeks when we get the next issue. It's just so good.
He's agree,
never
man.
A bad Batman comic, and he continues to just impress.
Yeah, I'm digging it. I'm just digging the hell out of it week to week, man. It's too much fun not to be reading.
Tom King did mention like a month ago now on Twitter. He posted the final page of this without the dialogue. And like there was an inter-office debate about how many panels this last page counts as.
Oh.
Which is interesting. Because he did a very similar thing with the last issue of I Am Suicide, where it's 23 panels, but it depends on whether or not you count the titles.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that he's breaking that up and like very intentionally trying to see how much you could do with a paneled structure is really cool.
Yeah.
So like Bruce and Selina in the foreground count as a panel?
I don't know, do they?
I don't know. They're framed like a panel. Everyone in the back is technically a panel. Do the partial panels count?
I don't know, man. It's
cool to think about.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's funny that we got this this new Joker from Killing Joke taking a picture ad.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like perfectly fits right here in this really juxtaposed way. Where like this is not the Joker of this story whatsoever. And yet this is like what's looming in the future for Bruce. And that's really kind of cool.
Photos of Joker's victims behind him, and then right next to it is an image of Joker taking pictures.
Yeah, how crazy is it that the ad worked out in that way? There's no way they knew that was going to happen, but it just works.
No, they wrote this issue months ago. It was written and drawn months ago. There's no way.
Right?
It's kind of cool.
Oh, let me ask you, did you get fooled by the Snickers ad?
Well, I read it online, so I didn't have a Snickers
ad. Okay. They did this at the beginning of Rebirth, too, where it was like Superman and Batman fighting Doomsday, and then Batman just gives Doomsday a Snickers and it's Wonder Woman, which I totally buy, let me tell you. I totally believe that's Wonder Woman when she's hungry.
Of course.
But like, I remember I was reading like action. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? What, Superman's fighting Doomsday, and Batman just showed up and gave Doomsday a Snickers. What the hell? and I'm just like, I had a similar thing where I'm like, oh shit, Flash and Superman are involved in this story now. That's surprising. Holy shit, Gorilla Grodd, all this stuff. When's Batman going to show up and say, I'm too busy, I'm dealing with the War of Jokes and Riddles? I'm like, oh wait, it's the Snickers ad. They call that native content.
As annoying as that Snickers ad is, it's not as bad as the Snickers ad that was literally half the page is an ad and the top half is the comic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was just asinine.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I think that'll do it for War of Jokes and Riddles. I'm getting more and more excited every time I read King's Batman. He is just getting better and better to me.
He is. I can't wait. 2 weeks. 2 weeks cannot come fast enough. This book is just phenomenal.
Aren't you so glad you're getting double shipping? Can you imagine if you had to wait a month between these?
God, no. You know, if we had to wait a month between these, we still would not be through I Am Suicide, probably.
Ugh.
Could you picture? Oh, God, that'd be so bad.
Yeah.
We might just barely be past I Am Suicide.
No thanks. All right, Steve. I'll catch you later, man. Steve is gone, ladies and gentlemen. And now we begin Trade Talk. So this is Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther Volume 1. This came out in, I want to say, 2006, maybe? It's been a while. So this is the first arc of his story, the first 6 issues, which is called Who is the Black Panther? And I really, really like this. They did an animated series that was an adaptation of the majority of this. Like they added some stuff, they changed some things, but it's more or less the same thing. They did a little like Marvel Knights motion comic of it for BET. And that is really, really good too. It's a little bit better than this, but not by much. It's just they clearly knew what improvements they could make. So where to begin with Black Panther? This gives us a really interesting perspective into the history of Wakanda and what kind of reputation and what kind of nation they have been, where they've never been conquered, they've never been, ruled by anyone else but themselves. And for an African nation, that's very, very unique. And so they're like just these little snippets of history that deal with the way in which they beat back their would-be oppressors. And that's really fascinating, and it creates just a very, very cool perspective on what that kind of nation would be like and how it would be perceived in the modern day by the United States, which is the greatest imperial power in history. And so we have this guy in the White House who's like this expert on Wakanda, and he's informing everybody about it. And he tells them, the Black Panther defeated Captain America in battle, all this kind of stuff. And we juxtapose this with the rise of the book's villain, Claw. Who is the Black Panther? The Black Panther is the ruler of Wakanda. It's a spiritually based warrior cult, sort of like being Pope, President, and head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff all at once. The Panther is a hereditary title, but you still have to earn it. The series of tests that a Panther must pass are so arduous that only candidates who have had special training from childhood can qualify. But just so everyone gets a chance, once a year, there's a day when any Wakandan can challenge the king for the throne. So as royal lineages go, it's a lot more of a meritocracy than, say, England. And we juxtapose that by showing Panther defeating challengers in the ring on that day. It's really cool. There's such a feeling of pride and empowerment and a rich history and understanding that of kind of like a wish fulfillment in this, and it just reads epically. This just feels cool. It just breathes cool. And we get so much that builds up into this. And we see the Black Panther defeated in the ring by a challenger who ends up being Prince T'Challa. And that's just neat. I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. Throughout the book, we get the political machinations of Claw and his surrogates. Get this great scene of the rhino headbutting a rhino and killing it. And that's neat. But we got Claw, who is descendant from Belgian South African conquerors that were turned away by the Wakandans, and he just has this feud with the Black Panthers, and so he wants to destroy the entire country of Wakanda. And he killed T'Challa's father, so there's just this real, like, it's a little comic booky, it's retconny, whatever, I don't care. It makes it personal and it makes it cool. And then there's just like really kick-ass art by John Romita Jr. that just looks fucking awesome. Like, look at this panel and tell me it's not the epitome of awesome. That is like the coolest single panel of all time. I don't care what anyone says. That's amazing. And then there's just like these really interesting back and forths that, like, you get the political movement, or like you get the idea of the political scale of Wakanda. So they're talking about trying to find the man that assassinated T'Challa's father. And one of his advisors goes, "We won't get further without cooperation from the West. Why not make this a condition of limited trade? Maybe they would give him up in exchange for the cure to cancer." And then this other guy goes, "And admit their own complicity? I don't think so. If they cared about their people's health, they wouldn't sell cigarettes." I just love that. That just like so puts them leagues above the other nations of the world. And that's really, really cool. And then there's this scene in the flashback with T'Challa's father where he's been invited to this actual leaders of the world kind of Illuminati thing, the people with actual economies that kind of rule the world. And this guy says, "Your Majesty will pay whatever price you set for your goods." And he just says, "They are not for sale. Until the spiritual advancement of the West catches up to their technological prowess, it would be irresponsible to share our scientific discoveries with you. What? Are you calling everyone here irresponsible children? No, more like sullen teenagers who feel more mature than their behavior warrants. The fact that every conversation here is framed in terms of profit and power says it all. You could have made half these breakthroughs yourself, but there's too much money to be made in misery. Why cure a disease when people pay for medicine? Why provide cheap energy when... We got the point, T'Chaka. Never thought I'd meet a socialist with a crown on his head before, but I guess there's a first time for everything. It's just cool. There's just this, like, absolute air of we're just better than you. And we don't feel ashamed by that. It's kind of hard to explain from time to time, but I'll try to get into it. As a minority in the West, America in particular, you are told that you are equal to white people, that you are just as good, just as deserving. In the modern day, that's what you are told. That is the narrative you are fed. The fact that you have to be told you are equal, that you have equal protection under the law, whether or not that's true, the fact that you have to be told that information is really telling to the idea that you're probably not. It informs the notion that there was a time that you were openly considered less than a person. And you were effectively told to be ashamed that you are not white. That's very much true for the Hispanic experience. It's very much true for the Native experience. And from my interactions with African Americans, it's very much true for the African American experience. The notion of taking a nation of Africans that was never conquered and allowing them to have their culture be unchanged by Western influence, and allowing that to breed a society of technological superiority, intelligence, and equality. Feel not sure what word I want. It makes those notions feel really, really great. There is definitely an element of wish fulfillment, but that's kind of what comics are for. If we're going to make a metaphor of an African nation that was never conquered, it's not just going to be, or it shouldn't just be, in my opinion, another nation with the same kinds of problems that the West experiences. If we want to have commentary with this, they should be better, just a better class of people in their ethics and their morality, in how they run their society, than Western nations. That's why I didn't really care for Ta-Nehisi Nicole's. No, it's Ta-Nehisi Coates. Sorry, I don't know where I got Nicole. That's why I didn't really care for Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther book that's still ongoing, because when I started reading it, it was just like, all these same problems exist in Wakanda. I mean, it's fine, whatever, do what you want, but it's not why I want to read Black Panther. There is a level of escapism, and that's okay. Themyscira in many ways serves the same purpose as Wakanda does. So it's just neat. It's just got this great it's got this great feeling that immediately appeals to a side of yourself that you always wished could exist. That's the best way I can think to say it. And that is what is so gold about this book, is it has so much pride. It has so much so much grace. It really does feel like that mythic idea of royalty, being that royalty is not all that mythic when you actually look into it. So it's just really, really neat. T'Challa's royalty, sure, but he's also earned that title. Again, I just really like the politics of this. He's asking who's going to be the ambassador for Wakanda to the United Nations, and his uncle doesn't want to do it, so he's like, I guess your son will have to do it. And he's like, my son? I hope you're not choosing him as a favor to me. You know that's not my style. He's smart, tough, and loves our nation. He's also envious of you. Better to have him far away from here. Smart man. I like that. That's really cool. That's a really neat idea. And then we just get, these neat little things. Nelson Mandela is calling, Your Highness. I'll take the call here. Thanks. Amandala T'Challa, congratulations on your coronation. Thank you, Mr. President. Your father provided crucial support to the African National Congress during the dark days of the apartheid. The people of South Africa will never forget the debt we owe you. Your Highness, President Bush on line 2, Fidel Castro on line 3, and Prince Namor on the Aquaphone. That's just cool. That just has a cool factor to it, and again, a real sense of pride. And that's great. And then it's juxtaposed with, like, the conception of, an African ruler that we have in the West. That certainly does exist. Last King Scotland, can never remember the guy's name, but he's a big inspiration for this guy, who's like the leader of the nation neighboring Wakanda. And he is helping fund Claw's whole operation, or he's helping stage Claw's operation. It's just neat, man. So Wakanda's coming under attack from a bunch of different sides, and it's really planning an invasion as T'Challa has to start to deal with it, and everything kind of attacks at once. And he just deals with it with such calm and incredible prowess that it makes it really, really awesome to watch. Where's the line? Because it's so perfect. I love this cover. That is an amazing, amazing cover. That is a poster. Oof. Haley's sneezing back there. They're noticing you.
That really hurt to do.
Aw. Poor Haley. Anyway, I'm trying to find this moment. Okay, so his uncle, who was the Black Panther that he defeated to gain the throne, tells him, don't get emotional now. They're counting on that. And T'Challa says, emotional? I'm happy. All my enemies in one place. That's awesome. That's just really, really awesome. That, like, he's being invaded from all sides. He's having to deal with all these different crises at once. You know, the vibranium mind is under attack. The Rhino is rushing through the heart of his country on a collision path with his capital. And there's a frickin' knight flying around on a Pegasus cutting down his fighter jets. Like, everything's going wrong for him at once, and it's all because of Ubuntu, his neighboring dictator. And so he's like, good. All these people now have shown their hand. I get to go fight them. And that's really, really awesome. And meanwhile, we get the American military trying to involve themselves as quote-unquote protectors and helpers. And they've created a special force of reanimated American soldiers' corpses fitted with cybernetic enhancements to go invade Wakanda. There's some commentary there, and I wish it felt as dated now as it did, like, 8 months ago. Sigh. So T'Challa's mother is under protection, but Claw busts in and kind of seems like things are going wrong just as the United States troops are landing. I want to talk about this cover because this is also another amazing cover. And I believe it was Grady last week when I was talking about Kyle Andrews' Renato Jones book, who said the art was really, really ugly. And I made the point that Kyle Andrews is perfectly capable of drawing really, really well. Beautiful art. Renato Jones is ugly on purpose. This cover is by Kyle Andrews. And it's beautiful. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. So anyway, Claw gives T'Challa an ultimatum since he's in the neighboring country at the time. Wherein he will kill his mother and destroy his country unless T'Challa takes this opportunity to kill himself. Now find a nice sharp knife or a dull one, I don't care, and kill yourself. And there's all this tension. He's like, so what are you waiting for? T'Challa, do it. He's like, or what? What do you mean, or what? I told you that you would kill my mother. You will anyway. That you would destroy my kingdom. He will do that anyway, too. It doesn't really matter what you do. I'm still going to kill you. So what's your leverage? And his mom's just like, that's my son. Oh, that's cool. That's so awesome. Yeah, this is like, that's my son. You mean the one who just sentenced you to death? No, the one that just sentenced you to death. That was really cool. And things just go, you know, pretty epically. It's just this big, epic, you know, awesome battle, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it as I read through it. You know, it's got a lot of cool action. It's got a lot of great fight choreography. It's just a really solid book, guys. It's got great metaphor, great commentary. It's got some pretty good comic relief here and there. It's got a great cliffhanger. I'm really excited to read more. And just ends so well. Oh, like I love this. So the cyborgs, the US cyborgs show up and they go, "Greetings, Your Highness. We are military assistants sent by the United States to help secure your borders." And Charles says, "Your assistance was not requested and the threat has been neutralized. We will sweep the perimeter for any remaining zombie. Broadcast this message back to your handlers. Wakanda appreciates the offer of assistance from the United States. However, your help is not needed. If you remain on Wakandan soil for more than 1 hour, you will be considered an invading force and will be dealt with accordingly." Message received. We'll be heading back to base. Have a nice day. And he just stands there so proud and defiant. He looks like a freaking statue, and that's just awesome. That just works so well. This is really a great book. This is a really, really solid book. Reginald Hudlin in the back has his initial pitch for how he, you know, like what his plan was. And he's like, the question is, how do we take the character to the next level? Let's start by defining who he is. The Black Panther is the Black Captain America. He's the embodiment of the ideals of a people. As Americans, we feel good when we read Captain America because he reminds us of the potential of how good America can be if, of course, we have the convictions to live by the principles the country was founded on. As a Black person, the Black Panther should represent the fulfillment of the potential of the motherland. For a long time, the Black American equivalent of that ideal was represented by Sidney Poitier, a man who has maintained his dignity even in degrading situations. But since the 80s, that ideal has shifted in the post-integration, post-Reagan era. The new ideal is Spike Lee or Sean Puffy Combs, the artist/businessman hero who profits from his own cultural integrity. In other words, the man who has it all, the money, the politics, and the cool style of Black culture. What those celebrities named alongside with Malcolm X, Miles Davis, and Muhammad Ali all have in common is the knowledge that the being of a Black man in white America is an inherent act of rebellion. They are willing to be badass. I say all this because the harder the Panther is, the more appealing he is to both Black and white audiences. What we've got to do is allow the Panther to be who he is set up to be. After all, he's a Wakandan. Wakandans are so badass, they've never been conquered, all in caps. this is important. There are some countries that are like doormats. Everybody's kicked their ass at one point or another, but there are other peoples in the world, Vietnam comes to mind, that kick the ass of everyone who messes with them, superpower or not. The Wakandans are such a people. I figure every 50 years or so, somebody tries to make a move on them, and they have to prove the point to that generation of would-be conquerors. Don't even try it. Now, I'd asked Duke Loops, why he didn't like this, because I've heard him talk about hating Hudlin's Black Panther run. And his response was mainly that he thought Hudlin was a really annoying person, really annoying as a writer, that he thought he was better than the material, and like he'd only ever had, you know, when he started writing this, he had like what, House Party 2 as his writing credits on things, and he's certainly not written much great outside of this, from what I can tell. I believe he's still one of the executive producers of BET, and we all know what garbage they put on air. He was involved in the Django Zorro crossover that I really, really loved. We did an episode of Geeky Gentleman on that. But he's like, you know, he got into comics effectively and, you know, kind of being a little brazen and saying that he was going to make comics better, when he really, you know, what right does he have to say that? That being said, this is damn good. I can't think of anything fundamentally wrong with this story. I can see why this story wouldn't speak to some people, particularly white people. I would see why this would not speak to you as strongly as it would to someone who is a minority, especially if they're black. But, you know, I read this, and it's just a really, really solid book. And so, death of the author is the best I could say. If you're kind of turned off by Hudlin's behavior, Hudlin's, if you think Hudlin's smug, you certainly have the right to be, but don't allow that to affect your opinion of this, because this shit is solid. This is a solid book. And I think it is a really, really great place to start reading Black Panther. I actually bought all of Hudlin's run. I did a while ago, and I bought it all when I was in a Black Panther mood, but I didn't start reading it at that time, because by the time I got it all, I wasn't in a Black Panther mood anymore. But I'm in more of a Black Panther mood all of a sudden, so I'm going to start reading more Black Panther. I'll try to get through all of Hudlin's run and do, you know, reviews of it here on this show. I know there are things that are not popular that he did. Some people don't like the marriage to Storm. I don't know. I'll see when I get to it if I care or not. You know. But I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of Comic Reviews. I certainly did. Until next time, bye, everybody.